politicians are not actually free to stand for the right thing.
Powerful politicians and CEOs were recorded abusing minors.
Our battle is not with the people. Our battle is not with the ruling elites. Our battle is a spiritual one.
Hey, and welcome to the Political Show right here on Active FM, where radio has never been better. I'm your girl Cynthia, but you know you can call me Gix, and with me on studio we have
Gavin Ensslin.
Pastor Gavin Ensslin right here on the Political Show, where Christ politics is
Hot politics.
hot politics. And this week's hot politics, we are basically looking at the whole thing in what do the corrupt elite have to do with the decisions that are made with Iran, Iran, however you pronounce it. And this is coming from an interview that we basically watched with former UK MP Andrew Bridgen, who covered the elite corruption, child trafficking, COVID-19 vaccines, political institution, media control, and global power structures. And he basically speaks and connects the political, corporate, intelligence, and financial elites into a coordinated system of corruption and cover-ups. And we are basically looking at what he was speaking about with regards to that, and then also looking at what has happened in Iran, the decisions behind what has happened in Iran, how mainstream media is promoting it, and what our thoughts are. Pascal, do you want to give a more brief explanation?
Yeah, so this interview with Andrew Bridgen, and just to mention, where he actually came from, or where I first got to know about him. He'd been a member of parliament for the Tories in the UK, the Conservative Party, for many years. And he actually made a speech in parliament that's been the UK parliament, about the dangers of the vaccine. And apparently it took him forever to actually get that speaking spot. And after he did this, and after he started pushing back like this, Boris Johnson kicked him out of the Conservative Party. And all of his funding from the Conservative Party went, and all of his staff that were working for him as an MP, they all left him. So they were interviewing him about the level of corruption, and we'll talk later about what exactly that corruption is, because you might be thinking fraud and theft and stealing money and stuff. It's way worse than that. It's like 150,000 billion times worse than that. And it's actually pretty evil. Now, when you look at that, we know here in South Africa that exactly the same thing is happening here. That we're in exactly the same situation, whereby those that are in parliament and those that are in rulership positions, there is evil stuff that is going on, and much of it we do not even know, except that here in South Africa, much of it is spilled over into public knowledge because we can see it. We can see it at our schools, we can see it at our police stations, etc., etc., etc. Now, the reason we're talking about this is because the level of corruption and the level of evil has actually meant that politicians are not actually free to stand for the right thing. If they do, let me tell you, their lives are going to really come short. And so we're now looking at what's happened with Iran. And we're looking at the South African government's response to Iran, looking at what took place, in this interview with Andrew Bridgen. And the thing is that earlier in the year, when the Iranian protests were taking place, and the Iranian government took their soldiers and mowed people down with AK-47s that were unarmed, and took people from Iraq and from Hezbollah in Lebanon and from Syria and places like that, and got them to mow innocent Iranian civilians down, the sovereign government said nothing. In fact, the mainstream media said nothing. And now I see this week they've been counting the deaths since the bombings and things like that have started. And that's a real joke for me, because I heard another interview with an Iranian who used to be an Iranian Muslim who gave his life to Jesus in 2006. And he spoke about the fact that upwards of 90 to 100,000 and maybe even more people were mowed down in Iran in January and February. And yet nothing got said. And now when the attacks happen and the Iranian people are celebrating because the Ayatollah was taken out, now South Africa is expressing deep concern. The Democrats in America are expressing deep concern. Tucker Carlson is experiencing deep concern. And I just do not trust all of these guys. I do not trust any of them. and they're saying it's Israel's war and all sorts of stuff. No, it's the Iranian people's war. I can promise you now, the vast majority of the Iranians want that Islamic regime gone. And so we're going to be discussing, why we believe all of this corruption and all of this evil that bedevils, our political society, we believe is affecting the policy positions that governments are taking.
Yes, it's going to be an interesting topic, as always, right here on the Political Show, where Christ Politics is
Hot politics.
Hot Politics. So we are speaking about the whole thing with the elites and the fact that there is a coordinated system in terms of corruption and cover-ups and stuff, and more specifically looking at the interview that happened with the former UK MP Andrew Bridgen. And in this interview, he speaks about a couple of major themes. One of the first things that he speaks about is secret green files and political cover-ups. He speaks about the fact that for decades, UK close protection officers compiled secret weekly reports known as the secret greens, documenting misconduct by powerful political figures, and that these files contain evidence of sexual abuse by senior politicians, establishment knowledge of crimes, suppression of investigation, intelligence services such as the MI5 special branch covering up wrongdoings. And he references allegations involving former Prime Minister Edward Heath. He claims that police investigations were blocked, assertions that establishment figures protected the abusers. If these files were released, they would expose high-level complicity in abuse and corruption. So we are basically looking at the whole thing with the government corruption, the elite corruption, and the coordinated system.
I think government is a good word for it, Cynthia. I think government is 100%.
That's true, because if we had to look at the definition of government and what they do, then the correct word is government. Yeah. And more specifically, looking at the interview that happened with the former UK MP, Andrew Bridgen. And in this interview, he speaks about some major themes. And one of them is the secret Greens file and political cover-ups. And in this, Bridgen claims that for decades, UK close protection officers compiled secret weekly reports called Secret Greens, documenting misconduct by powerful political figures. And these files contained evidence of sexual abuse by senior politicians, establishment knowledge of crimes, suppression of investigation, even intelligence services covering up wrongdoings. And he references the alleged involvement of former Prime Minister Edward Heath. And in the whole central thing with this is that if these files were released, they would expose high-level complicity in abuse and corruption. What are your thoughts with that, Pastor Gav, before we move on to some of the other major themes?
First of all, this is something we were speaking about ourselves recently, with Epstein about 2 weeks ago. Now, I saw that, and I'm just saying to all of you out there, I was quite disappointed when I saw that our Epstein video, only made about 6 views on YouTube. But then the one that we did last week, what was that relating to? What was the subject last week? Now Vita blank even. But that one blew up. It was relating to what was going on and our corruption here in Home Affairs, and things like that, and that just absolutely blew up. But the thing is, when you look at the Epstein files, one of the things that we said is this is a fraction of what's going on, and the other thing is that what we also spoke about, some of the things that have come out relating to the Epstein files, actually says that people have been eating young children, literally cannibalism and things like that. We're talking about serious exploitation of children being trafficked and disappearing. At one point in the interview, he spoke about some trafficking that was apparently going on on the island of Jersey. 10 kids would come out of a children's home, go onto a boat, and 9 would come back, and things like that. And that Sir Edward Heath, who was He was called Sir Edward Heath. He was knighted. Gigs, he was knighted. All right. I mean, I want you just
Can
to
you
think about.
imagine?
I want you just to think about that right now. He was knighted, and yet he was apparently, what some people have said, he was abusing boys with a metal contraption to sexually abuse them. How does this get covered up? And then the secret green files are files where the close protection officers write down a report every week of what these major political figures and business figures and all sorts of other people have been getting up to. And that MI6, the intelligence guys in the UK, that the CIA, Mossad in Israel, and many of these intelligence agencies know exactly what's going on. He also spoke about the inhumane and terrible human trafficking that's going on out of the Ukraine. He claimed that it's not happening on the Russian side, that Vladimir Putin is not doing that to his kids.
Sure.
So now you hear all of these six things, and then he made a statement. And the statement that he made was that people cannot get into political power if someone has not taken a video of them doing sexual things with a child, with a minor. Now, I want you just to think about that. In other words, every person that gets into position is compromised. And he says the same thing happens in the US, and I'm telling you now, I firmly believe the same thing happens in South Africa, because it's pretty obvious that our politicians are compromised.
Yeah.
I mean, if you just look at the debacle that's going on with the Matlanga Commission and the things that are coming out, and then also the ad hoc committee questions that are happening in Parliament, over the disaster that is the Saviour Police Services, and you can see that political parties they're coming with political angles when they are questioning witnesses. So when you look at all of this, how is our President Cyril Ramaphosa compromised? How are the other members of Parliament? How are they compromised?
Yeah.
Gayton McKenzie, how is he compromised? John Steenhuisen, Gordon Hill-Lewis, who's the current mayor of Cape Town, who's now apparently the front runner for the leadership race of the Democratic Alliance after John Steenhuisen stepped down. How's he compromised? I believe these guys are compromised because there's no ways that someone who's not compromised would pass the laws that these members of Parliament are passing.
Yeah.
There's no ways that they would cover up what these members of Parliament are covering up. There's no ways. And what he was talking about is that what's going on is not just sexual abuse, it's Satanism.
Yeah.
That these are satanic rituals that are happening. And you can go there, you can look at the interview, of Andrew Bridgen. He was destroyed. The establishment went after him. He was totally destroyed when he came out with the truth. And Gigs, we experienced the same thing when I used to do the Situation Room.
Yeah.
On our Active TV channel. And we were speaking the truth about things like the vaccine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all of this. And our channel got banned. We got 3 strikes and we got taken out. So if you're telling the truth, you're not going to last on YouTube.
That's true.
And now, I mean, with Andrew Bridgen's interview, it seems to be maybe it's going to last a bit more, but that's because of pressure that's come from X. But the thing is, and this is what I want to tell you, many people are talking about Elon Musk as being a savior. In my view, for Elon Musk to get to where he did from a business perspective, I think he's compromised.
I mean, I always thought, looking specifically at Elon Musk, since you mentioned him, I thought the moment he switched his perspective on was it AI, when he was speaking against it to now promoting it and stuff, I knew that he was compromised. Like they got to him, oh no, and stuff. So yeah, so I really do believe that whole aspect.
I actually don't even think that. I don't believe he would have gotten to the position where he has. First of all, with Tesla, with SpaceX, and I think he first got in there somehow with PayPal or whatever it was, something like that. I don't think he would have gotten to where he's gotten without backing.
Yeah.
we've actually expressed this view before, that we don't believe that anyone who's super rich gets there without being compromised in some way. Like Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein got a serious position within the World Economic Forum when he was something like 30 years of age. And he had unbelievable access to all of these presidents and prime ministers and world leaders who put him there.
Yeah.
You know, they said it was David Rockefeller put in there. I think it was Rockefeller put in there. So the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and people like that, they're involved somehow. But another thing that people also miss who talk about the Rockefellers and Rothschilds are the human trafficking that goes on around Islam. And if you look, Muhammad married Aisha. That was his last wife. She was 6. So what is the difference with what Muhammad did and what these world leaders are doing now? And the Islamic sources say, now, so the standard age at which he consummated the marriage with Aisha she was 9. So he consummated the marriage with Aisha when she was 9. Some guys believe it could have been as young as 7.
That is crazy. And the 9 or 7 doesn't matter. It's still like a minor. You know?
That's a minor. I'm
yeah.
telling you. You couldn't have said it better. But the thing is, further than that, today, in places like Saudi, you get 50-something-year-old men marrying girls that are under 10. We're talking about child brides. And this happens in a lot of the Islamic world, which Western media don't like to talk about because the elites are compromised in terms of what they've done with children, and there are videos of them.
Yeah.
What I'm telling you, you look at just about every single top elite person in the United States.
Yeah.
And there's almost certain to be compromising videos on them. There's one person that I'm not sure if there are compromising videos with him, and that is Donald Trump. There may be. I don't know that he's innocent.
Yeah.
But with some of the things that he's done, even the way he took out the Ayatollah now, I mean, people are saying he's just doing Israel's bidding. I just want to say something about that. A year ago, what were people telling us, Geeks? They were telling us that you can't attack Iran. Iran is so strong. Israel's going to be finished.
Yeah.
Israel never finished the war.
Yeah.
They're going to be taken out. And now, the Ayatollah is dead. All right? And all of a sudden, we've got all the Gulf states attacking Iran. I'm not happy about that. Because I still believe there could be an Islamic plot to keep Iran Islamic. And the people of Iran don't want that.
Yeah.
They damaging mosques and other Islamic buildings. And so the thing is when you look at this, the South African government is severely compromised when it comes to Islam.
Yeah.
And if they compromise when it comes to Islam, they compromise when it comes to human trafficking. What is the number one center in the world when it comes to human trafficking? It's the Middle East.
Yeah.
If you know anything about what's going on, kids get human trafficked from South Africa, they get loaded onto ships and they get taken to the Middle East. Okay, that's what's happening. And no one talks about it, but it's happening.
Yeah, no, that's true.
And so, you know, the whole thing with South Africa not saying anything when October 7 happened, then took Israel to the International Court of Justice, you know, saying Israel's committing genocide. Meantime, they do nothing about the Muslim-backed Fulani herdsmen and Boko Haram in Nigeria that are slaughtering since 2009. I mean, we did a show on that some time ago.
Yeah.
Over 90,000 people since 2009. So it's a very sad state of affairs. And the reality is that there has to be a mass change of those who are in power. And so one of the last things I want to say is that Andrew Bridgen was asked in this episode, people are saying the stock market will collapse if you sort all these people out. People are saying that there will be no politicians. He's saying, so what? Don't we need a change?
Yeah.
And if we need that kind of pain, then we must have that kind of pain.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with what you've said, Pastor. And when we look at going from the Epstein files and all the way through to, and he actually speaks about the Epstein files. He speaks about the fact that Jeffrey Epstein operated a blackmail network. And speaking of which, I actually came across a video where, you know how they're busy questioning Bill Clinton. Is it Bill Clinton? Former President Bill Clinton and his
Yes,
wife.
that's correct.
and they're doing all of that.
But I
And
mean, no offense, I feel those questions are whitewashed questions.
yeah, no, definitely. Definitely. But there was a video that I watched that was actually quite shocking, because they're showing Bill Clinton the evidence that they have against him and the pictures that they have, and he's smiling while he's looking at it. And the person who was actually putting this video up actually was like, it almost seems like he's reminiscing on those pictures. You know, when you look at a picture and you're like, oh, I remember this day, type of thing. But he's basically smiling as he's looking at the video, and then you actually see his lawyer take the papers away from him, and then he takes the papers back and he starts flipping through the videos again, and it's actually quite shocking. But when we look at this, we actually see the evil, and Pascal mentioned the fact that it's satanic, basically. This thing is satanic. But what's this? Jeffrey Epstein operated a blackmail network. What's this? Intelligence agency, and particularly what's this? Intelligence agencies were involved, and powerful politicians and CEOs were recorded abusing minors. And you see this in, I mean, already with the pictures and the evidence that have been released, you're already cringing at the fact that what is going on here. Imagine the stuff that haven't been released. Imagine the stuff that remained redacted. And stuff like that. And he even goes as far as speaking about the COVID-19 and the vaccine claims, saying that COVID vaccine caused a widespread harm and excess deaths. And we saw that. In fact, even with the after the vaccines were released, they started seeing a higher number of heart attacks with younger people, and all of these things. Then there's the Post Office Horizon scandal, where he recounts his role in exposing the UK Post Office Horizon scandal, and that the faulty IT system led to wrongful prosecutions. The governments covered it up, and media initially ignored it. And then he goes on to speak about how...
So in the media that he named specifically was ITV.
Yeah.
And the guy who was the CEO of ITV was the CEO of the post office before. And then eventually the CEO, when the program was released after 2020, is the one that got blamed, and they rewrote the story. And the guy who was the CEO of ITV wasn't written in the story when the documentary came out in 2024.
Yeah, so that's part of it. And he speaks about how the systematic corruption is across different institutions such as Parliament, the judiciary. We see that in the police. We see that in media. We see that in corporations and regulatory bodies. And I mean, in South Africa, we're already dealing with the regulatory body that is trying to, close down, I would say close down the church in South Africa and persecute the church in South Africa. And we see how the corruption works through them and all of this stuff. And then he also goes on to speak about the global elite control, and that how global governance is controlled by banking families. And we've spoken about this so many times on the show, where we look at the Rockefellers, we look at the De Beer family here in South Africa, and all of these things. So the banking families, the royal family, wealthy dynasties, and even the World Economic Forum. And he speaks about the fact that there is basically a one world government. There's a group of people, a group of elites that are running most of what we know here. The media that we see, the things that we believe to be true, and stuff. And I'll use the example of Iran as well. When the whole thing happened with Iran recently, what do you see on the media? That Trump is making bad decisions. All of these things are happening and whatever. And a lot of people believe that what Trump is doing is evil. Instead of looking at how the people within Iran have celebrated and are excited about what he did. Let's tie this up with the question in terms of how does this link up with the decisions that are being made with Israel?
Well, we're talking specifically about the ANC in South Africa.
Yeah.
And And specifically when you look at that, how these decisions, the positions that the government is taking, are actually very pro-Iran, and the vast majority of people in South Africa are Christians, and the Christians in Iran want the regime gone.
Yeah.
So, by nature, the average South African is not going to side with the Islamic regime in Iran. So, therefore, when the government takes the opposite, position, then you have to start asking, who are they serving? Are they serving the people who elected them, or are they serving another boss? And the reality is, you need an inordinate amount of money to be elected. I think I've seen a figure that it costs a couple of million rand for a party to win, for each seat that a party wins in parliament.
Mm.
Buying up media time and all of these sorts of things. It's an inordinate amount of money, plus paying fees to the Independent Electoral Commission and all sorts of things like that. So therefore, elitists are able to control what is happening in the elections because the people who are running need money.
Yeah.
And so, who's telling our government, who they should support? And the other thing I also wanted to mention, the South African government, whether they be the ANC or the DA, even the Patriotic Alliance, most of them operate under a Marxist philosophy, and I'm including the DA in that.
Yeah.
We've spoken about this before. And the Marxist philosophy, will side against anything that stands with the church.
Yeah.
And so, therefore, the Iranian regime, which is 1,000% against the church, our politicians stand for. And the DA hasn't outright stood for Iran, but they've been quiet. They haven't said anything. The EFF and MK, they totally anti, anything other than Iran.
Mm.
And so, when you look at these things, I think that it's clear to see that our political class, our business class here in South Africa are compromised. In fact, I think it's even more compromised than what they are in the UK, because we actually see it in service delivery, things that are falling apart.
Yeah. Yeah. And in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12, it says, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places."
Again, I want to just say that our battle is not with the people. Our battle is not with the ruling elites. Our battle is a spiritual one.
Yeah.
And the thing that struck me about this interview with Andrew Bridgen was how he was linking things up with Satanism.
Yeah.
And when the Bible's talking about principalities and powers of this dark age, it's talking about demons. It's talking about Satan. It's talking about evil spiritual powers.
Yeah.
And to my mind, some of the things that are being alleged here by Andrew Bridgen with the green files and all of these sorts of things cannot be done by people unless there's a demonic influence behind what they're doing.
Yeah.
And so I want to encourage you. Are you in church? Who's your pastor? What are you doing to grow your church? What are you doing to get people saved? It's the only answer to these things. You're not going to find a political solution to these things.
Yeah.
For people to get into those positions, they have to be compromised in the first place, and therefore they will not be able to stand up, because if they stand up, they will be destroyed.
Yeah.
But the more powerful the church becomes, the harder it is for light, for evil to hide in dark places.
Yeah.
Because the light shines.
Yeah.
And so I want to encourage you with it. Go out and win the lost to Jesus. Government belongs to the Lord. Satan thinks he's in charge. He's not in charge. Government belongs to the Lord. And, if you will go out and step into the light like this, you're going to see the Lord do things that are just absolutely not incredible.
Amen. Amen. This has been an amazing show. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you agree with what we have observed? Do you agree with what former MP Andrew Bridgen has observed? Or do you have other opinions? We'd really love to hear your thoughts. I'm your girl Cynthia, but you know you can call me Geeks. And with me in studio we've had
Gavin Insland.
Pastor Gavin Insland, right here on the Political Show, where Christ politics is
Hot politics.
hot politics.